In the past couple of years, cringe culture has been getting progressively more and more dead, with things like self-shipping, demon angel edgelord OCs, and role-playing being much more commonplace, accepted, and embraced. However, despite the massive movement in support of murdering cringe culture, there is still an unspoken set of rules regarding what is considered cringe and what is still okay to make fun of relentlessly and ruthlessly. And aside from just kids being kids, I feel no piece of media and its fan base represents this phenomenon more than that of the explosively popular webcomic known simply as Boyfriends. Created by Refrain Bo, known better as Ray, a queer comic creator, Boyfriends is a slice-of-life romance surrounding the polyamorous relationship between four men, none of whom have been in a polyamorous relationship before. At its core, the Boyfriends comic is simply a fun slice of life about a colorful polycule, priding itself on its ability to show inclusivity and diversity within all corners of the queer community. So then, why am I talking about it today? Sounds like a pretty open and shut case of some positive representation. Well, think again, friends, because a lot of gay people really don't like this series. I can guarantee that the majority of you watching right now think Boyfriends is cringe and scary and horribly written, and if you're queer, you might even believe that it's bad representation or even blatant fetishization. It is impossible to look up the series without being met by hate and Pinterest memes clouding on its creation, and I genuinely thought that fans of the series were all cave-dwelling fujoshis who discovered this genre of art in 2016 and won't admit the damn thing isn't funny anymore. At least, that is what I thought until I awoke to probably the most passionate email I have ever received in my entire life, from an internet user known as Nullbird, who requested that I cover the controversial rabbit hole that is the Boyfriends Webtoon, claiming that they were a genuine fan of the comic, who believed that all the fun, nice parts of the series were swept completely under the rug amidst the hate train. I won't pretend that the idea of a Boyfriends video hasn't crossed my mind before. I'm all for revisiting viral cringe phenomena, but this email immediately inspired me to take another look at the series, because I really haven't checked up on it since its initial blowing up a few years ago, and even then, I never got that far into reading the actual thing, not because I despised it, but because I got bored and that one webtoon about the little white dog was better. There's definitely a lot more to this comic than meets the eye, not really within its contents, but more so within its creator and all the controversy that sparked amidst the popularity of the series. Seeing as I tend to defend a lot of very outdated cringe ways of life, I thought it would be worth an actual deep dive. And so, with Nullbird at my side to bring research straight to my doorstep, I decided to take a look back at the Boyfriends webtoon, its creator, and ask myself, and all of you, the most important question that I've ever had to ask. Is the Boyfriends webtoon really that bad? Does it actually fetishize and hurt queer people? Or is it just some harmless fluff that got way bigger than it needed to? Psst. Hey you. Yeah, you. What are you doing right now as you watch this video? Most of you, I assume, are drawing something. Obligatory check-in: if you're drawing something, you have to tell me what it is. If not, you're probably playing a game, doing some chores, or maybe even just going for a walk. Regardless of what you're doing, if you like to listen to videos or podcasts or music on the go anywhere you are, there's no better way to do so than with today's sponsor, Raycon. Raycon's everyday earbuds are perfect for listening on the go, whether you be at work, the gym, or on a walk. I'm absolutely loving their latest model that not only has a 32-hour battery life, but also multi-point connectivity that allows you to connect the earbuds to two devices at once. Perfect for when I'm hanging out with friends. Raycon's everyday earbuds also come in a ton of different colors, working hand in hand with your personal style, such as royal blue, forest green, blush violet, and my personal favorite, carbon black, as well as a wide selection of limited edition colors. And if all of that still isn't satisfactory to you, Raycon offers a 30-day happiness guarantee return policy, no questions asked. Personally, as an active person who loves going on walks and running errands, Raycon's everyday earbuds have been a lifesaver, and I especially appreciate the long-lasting battery, the comfortable, ergonomic design, and their IP66 waterproofing, so I can scream music as loudly as I need to in the shower. And for when children are screaming nearby while I'm trying to focus on working on these videos in coffee shops, Raycon's got me covered too, with their active noise isolation. So what are you waiting for? Go to buyraycon.com/quinnamon to get 20% off the best-selling everyday earbuds. Brought to you by Raycon. Thank you so much to Raycon for sponsoring this video, and don't forget to tell me what you're drawing right now. I'll get very angry if you don't. You don't want to make me angry, do you? I just got out of the shower. My hair is very wet. I am like a cat. It's a really nice shower. I smell like cinnamon now. Refrainbow, real name Ray, is a 26-year-old transgender and queer artist based in Jakarta, Indonesia. He has been actively posting online for roughly 12 years by now, being an extremely talented artist throughout their teenage years. Before finding infamy, Ray primarily created fan art for a multitude of fandoms, typically surrounding anime, Nintendo, and especially K-pop groups. While his presence on the internet around this time will be important later on, it's not really all that important right now, so we can just go ahead and put this era on the back burner for now, let it get all nice and toasty.
That looked good!
Flash forward to 2019, and Ray would announce the creation of a new comic series simply titled Boyfriends, originally posted onto Tapas and Webtoon Canvas. Because the comic was eventually picked up by Webtoon, the original version of it is completely taken off the internet, but we can still see how it looked through the efforts of archivers. I can't pinpoint the exact date of release, but on August 29, 2019, Ray posted this announcement. So, I'll go with an original release date of roughly August. If I'm wrong, sorry. Boyfriends would go on to accumulate some popularity, with each chapter garnering hundreds of thousands of views. It went on a hiatus of December of 2020 after the release of its 44th chapter, until Ray returned on February 27th to make a huge announcement. Hello everyone, I'm glad to announce that Boyfriends is going to be moved to Webtoon Originals and become a big boy official Webtoon title. Okay, but what does this mean? So yeah, this is what my secret project is and what I've been working on these past few months. I got picked up by Webtoon and they're going to publish Boyfriends exclusively on their main page as an official series. Boyfriends is also starting over from the beginning. However, we're working on a schedule where we'll be uploading pretty quickly for the first 30-ish episodes, so we can catch up with existing readers as soon as possible. There will be new chapters around the beginning of the series too, to put more context between episodes that seemed a little disconnected. Some episodes are more polished up, and black and white episodes will be re-released in color. The relaunch date is not set in stone yet, but it will definitely happen in spring 2021. Please look forward to it. For those unaware of what Webtoon is, first of all, I envy you. Second, it's essentially a streaming service but for comics. Creators can self-publish their work with Webtoon Canvas, which is what Boyfriends originally did. However, a Webtoon original is basically the equivalent to a Netflix original or a cable contract. The Webtoon company markets and publishes your work, and your work is brought onto their catalog to be updated every week or so. Some of their most popular series, other than Boyfriends, include Castle Swimmer, Lumina, Mage and Demon Queen, True Beauty, Bookie, and of course, the most popular webtoon to date, Lore Olympus. Of these, I've probably only read, like, these three, kinda, and they're pretty good, I think. I don't remember. Anyways, the new and improved Boyfriends was posted onto Webtoon Originals on April 19th, 2021, with 10 episodes being posted on the 19th and one every day until May 3rd, when it would begin updating every 3 days. The comic remained virtually unchanged from its original version, just having different formatting and color where it was originally absent. We are over 1,000 words into the script, and we haven't actually taken a real look into the contents within this comic, so before we take a look into the criticisms the comic received, and before I give my own opinion on it, I think it's important to, actually read the damn thing. Boyfriends begins with the introduction of two of our main characters, Prep and Goth, real names Vincent and Felix. However, they are never referred to by their real names within official Webtoon media, only called the names by Ray and in bonus content for Patreon. For consistency's sake, I'll be referring to them with their trope names, as that's what they're more commonly referred to as. The characters are walking around their college campus, and Prep makes his defining character trait immediately apparent, talking about how he yearns for a boyfriend. His roommate, Goth, tells him that picking up on boys is easy, and the two witness our third protagonist, Nerd, real name Adrian, tripping and dropping his notebook. Goth helps him up and ends up scoring him a date, telling Prep that it was super easy to do. Prep soon runs into our fourth protagonist, Jock, real name Kevin, and the latter flirts with Prep, although he's extremely oblivious and doesn't fully process it until later on. In the following episodes, we get to see Jock and Nerd flirting, Prep being awkward around Jock and Goth flirting, and Goth and Prep trapped in the gruesome reality of a roommate situationship. So in these first 6 chapters, we immediately garner that all of these characters essentially have crushes on each other, and that the next few chapters are going to be dedicated to them all getting to know each other. Jock gets invited to a party that Prep is hosting, and he starts freaking out because he's super awkward. Does this carry any significance? Not really, no, but I pointed out because we see Jock hanging out with a suspiciously Miku-shaped pink-haired girl, a character that will be important later on. We also sometimes see Nerd hanging out with someone with white braided hair. Both of these characters will show up again later, so store that information in your tiny little noggin. Goth and Nerd start dating, and Jock and Prep start dating as well. The two couples, while being separate pairings, eventually all realize that their crushes crashing on the other three, and Goth and Nerd decide they want to add the other two into their relationship. The four have a meeting about it, and they're all down, however, none of them have actually ever been in a polyamorous relationship before. As such, the setup of the comic is complete, and the path forward becomes clear. Fun, slice-of-life romance chapters about four boys navigating the confusion of being in a polycule. Innocent enough setup, right? So then where do the issues people have with this comic come from? Let's just take a look at some of the, actual dialogue, dubbed over by, me and my poor friends.
Oh, you guys
Jesus
are back.
Christ.
We ordered you a pizza. Why the f is he like this? Okay, he's my least favorite again. F this guy. Hey, I really like you.
Oh, I like you too. And your roommate. And that guy who plays basketball on the court.
Say psych right now.
Oh, right. Does that mean we are dating now? Because if we are, I'd like to have a kiss, please. Oh, fuck off.
No, fuck.
Dark days are ahead of us.
Just random fucking lightning. You should kill yourself now.
Yeah, it's not great. The comic also features a lot of slang, internet terms, outdated meme culture, and grammatical mistakes. However, it's important to take two things into account. One being that Ray is based in a non-English speaking country, and the other being that all types of people have many different senses of humor. I know I find some shit funny that a lot of people wouldn't understand, so I can't really knock the "oh Chucky milk, I'm baby" humor that much, especially because I acted like that in middle school, and yeah, it was cringe, but I was happy with myself, who cares. Despite being primarily slice of life, there is still some light plot regression in the first season. Throughout the beginning of the comic, we gradually see Goth adjust to getting top surgery. It's only ever mentioned that he's recovering from a surgery once, and he's depicted with post-operation binding around his chest. We also learn that Goth had been pining for his roommate Prep for countless years, and the two have some development in their relationship where Prep apologizes for not realizing Goth's feelings sooner, and Goth apologizes for not being more forward. It's nothing outstanding, but then again, this comic is very clearly not trying to be a big melodrama with a bunch of reoccurring plot points, at least not for now. The comic remains this formulaic for a good while, although in episode 67, we are introduced to a whole new main character, this being the Goth girlfriend named Luna. That's right, somehow in the same college there is another polycule with four people with the exact same characteristics of the other polycule, except this polycule is made up of all women instead. Although we don't properly see this showcased until episode 78. These characters I'll be referring to as their real names to avoid obvious confusion, and because, I like them more. That's it. I genuinely like them more. I think they're pretty cool. Goth introduces Luna to Nerd as the manager of the occult club, and Nerd immediately assumes the club is some scary sacrificial cult. However, they just summon good vibes and get drunk and watch movies. Side note, Luna is absolutely my favorite character in the entire comic. I genuinely love her. Not only is her design very pretty, she's very nice, but she's also probably the character with the least amount of unbearable dialogue. She has the same problem that I have with Felix, however, where neither of them are actually goth-like at all. I'm assuming the term is used because it rolls off the tongue better, but I'd probably describe this style of fashion more as alt or TikTok emo. And as someone who literally dresses like this, I know I'm not goth. I don't pretend to be, dude. I'm not a poser. In episode 74, we're introduced to the Jock girlfriend, real name Alex, who also happens to be Jock's sister. The boyfriends take a visit to Jock's family, where we get to see Alex being the overbearing, taller, older sister that she is. I found myself getting a lot more into the comic around this time, especially with the addition of these new characters. 4 episodes later, we're introduced to the other girlfriends, who are also the two characters I mentioned before. Prep, real name Stephanie, and Nerd, real name Lala. This is also our first direct confirmation that the four are romantically involved, and we get to see their dynamic much clearer. They're essentially the more experienced, older counterparts to the boyfriends, knowing how to perform level 10 polycule skill checks like the critical 4-way kiss. The next few episodes are dedicated to fleshing out their dynamics and relationships with the boyfriends more, which I actually found pretty enjoyable. The Preps are essentially petty gay rivals, the Jock siblings being aggressive older sister and babied younger brother, the Nerds are freakish fandom fiends who discuss all things fanfiction and anime, and the Goths are relaxed, chill best friends. Also, hey, look at the girlfriends' Halloween costumes, dude. They're awesome. I'm literally a gay man, and I love these girls so much more than the core 4. I don't know why. I just love them. Boyfriends also features a writing trope that I find really amusing, which is when a character is a YouTuber or a streamer and just has, like, unreasonably high numbers, like, absurdly so. Stephanie is a streamer of sorts and mentions having 25,000 concurrent viewers at some point. That's actually kind of absurd considering she doesn't do shit but play Animal Crossing, but you know, respect, alright? Game recognizes game. She also mentions being sponsored by a headphone company, which, like, can't relate. Anyways, the next few chapters are all just fun shit, and the season ends on New Year's Eve, where the boyfriends admit they still have so much to learn, but they have each other to learn learn alongside. I'm not even re-recording that one. I'm not. Time for season 2! There's a subtle art style change between seasons, with season 2's line work being a bit thinner and the colors being more soft and pastel. Season 2 focuses a lot more on character and relationship development, having a more genuine tone than the first one. Prep and Goth have some more development when Prep feels he doesn't really care for Goth and show him he loves him in the same way that Goth does to him. So he attempts to do various things to show his appreciation, like giving him hot chocolate with salt in it somehow, and saying poggers. Goth tells him that Prep has his own way of showing love, and that he adores him regardless. We then get to see a tender moment between Nerd and Jock as Nerd asks if he's being annoying for his teasing and flirtatious nature. Jock says he finds it endearing, and Nerd asks him to tell him if he ever finds it annoying. In episode 116, Jock runs into some guy with a purple hoodie who does nothing but bump into him, be an asshole, and then never appear again. But Nullbird really wanted to emphasize that people who hate boyfriends really fucking love this guy. Like, he has a fuck ton of hate-inspired fan art from the comics detractors, so I suppose this is important to add. This guy literally shows up for like 4 panels. In the next few chapters, we get to see more of the boys actually participating in college activities. While Nerd is excelling in his studies, Prep is thinking of his future, Luna has an internship and a podcast, and Stephanie is out being more popular of a streamer than fucking Germa somehow. Goth feels out of place seeing as he doesn't really know what to do with his future, and doesn't care as much about his studies. You know what Goth is doing, however? Working on a webcomic. Do you know what that comic is? Yeah, for some reason, Goth is making a comic about the life of him and his boyfriend, so it's like the Boyfriends Webtoon is a real thing in this universe, and it's just created by Goth. How does he have the time to be a slave to Webtoon while being in college? What the fuck? Anyways, Goth vents out his frustrations to Luna, who's rocking a brand new tattoo. She's so cool, oh my gosh. She gives Goth a card for the tattoo parlor, telling him that tattoo art might be something he wants to look into. Next episode, we get to see my new favorite duo more, Prep and Stephanie, as they show off their lesbian on gay violence in full throttle. We actually get to see some lore about their relationship. Stephanie was a transfer at Prep's old school, and the two were the most popular and coolest kids around. Naturally, the two formed a relationship so they could form a power couple. This is also how we find out that Stephanie is trans, as Prep is gay and only dated her before she transitioned. The two quickly realized that they were jealous of each other for different reasons, and they decided to mutually end things off on a good note. Although their rivalry is still rather intense, it's clear the two still care for each other, as Prep was the first person Stephanie ever came out to, and the two have kept their competitive friendship intact for a while. I do really appreciate these bits and pieces of character development, as they're not so forcefully fisted into the story that the tone's completely different, and actually gives insight onto the characters. Yeah, it isn't anything groundbreaking or tear-jerking, but it's not necessarily supposed to be, considering the tone and fast-paced nature of slice-of-life webtoons. The next few episodes not only give us some Goth lore, but progress the relationship of the 4 boys even further. While Goth is streaming, because of course he's also a streamer, Prep comes in to ask him if he would want to move in with him off campus. Goth confides in him that he'd love to, but he's scared, and we learn that when they were just kids, Goth and Prep were separated and weren't able to reunite until college. Goth opens up about his feelings and admits that if he moves in with Prep, he's worried that he'd be relying too much on him. The two have a little heart-to-heart, however, and Goth decides that he does want to move in with him, and asks if they should invite their other boyfriends to move in too. Prep asks them if they're interested, and they both agree, although Nerd mentions that they may need to convince their parents, and asks the boyfriends if they'd be interested in meeting them. The quadruple look at places that they could possibly rent, and Prep suggests a bunch of way too expensive penthouses, saying that he can just offer to cover the costs. His boyfriends have to teach him the lesson of not buying massively expensive things for people, as they feel as if they're taking advantage of him. We find out that Prep's insecurities come from his parents and their unrealistic expectations of him, always wanting results and even calling him out of the blue at times to remind him that he just just isn't good enough. Because of Prep's insecurities, he tends to dump absurd amounts of money into people he cares about, as he feels his efforts to be an actual person are never enough. While this isn't groundbreaking characterization, it's still very real, and is something that I especially can relate to a very insane degree. I often find myself in massive debt because I don't feel like a good friend ever, and I feel like I need to buy expensive surprises for the people I care about, or else they won't think I'm good enough. What am I saying? Oh my gosh, you don't care about that. Shut up, Quinn. You're in a YouTube video. Compliment the viewer. You have a very lovely home, dear viewer. I know that because I'm there. Come find me. Anyways, Prep realizes that he shouldn't spend so much damn money on his boyfriends, and they decide on an affordable place in an apartment nearby. Soon enough, it's time to meet Nerd's family. For some reason, everyone in his family has cotton candy ninja hair except for the father, even the younger children. I don't know if it's somehow natural or what, but whatever. The other boyfriends spend times with Nerd's siblings, while Nerd speaks with his parents about moving in with his boyfriends. God, I'm getting so bad at saying all of these words. They give him permission and also celebrate the fact that he has multiple boyfriends, excited that he's getting, in their words, mad laid, because that's how parents talk about their kids. Whatever, soon after, it's time for Prep and Goth to break free from the chains of education. As a wise man once said, welcome to graduation. Soon enough, it's time for Halloween once again, and this time the party is themed after angels and demons. The boyfriends seek out cosplay advice from Lala, and Goth offers up some sketches of his ideas. But of course, as he is creating the Boyfriends Webtoon still, he has to ask his editor if the outfits are too risque. Yeah, for some reason this season is really going for the breaking the fourth wall approach, very meta with all of that. It's not really anything intrusive, seeing as the tone of the comic is very unserious. A few chapters back even, Nerd explained that their hair is naturally blue like their family, but they have magical hair-changing color potions, and when questioned about it, they commented that it's a comic, and doesn't matter, so... Anyways, Lala successfully created Halloween costumes for the entire cast, and the party commences. They play Spin the Bottle, and things get spicy. Yeah, it's very fanfiction-y, but whatever, man, what did you expect? Before long, it's time for the boyfriends to finally move out with the help of Alex. The boys all claim their rooms and spend a while decorating, and we get to see what each of their rooms look like. I must say I am very intrigued by the tentacles under Goth's bed. How does that work? We spend a good chunk of time getting to see these new living arrangements, and it's honestly really sweet. I love romanticizing stuff like moving out and getting your own place because maybe it makes more people want to get out there themselves. Also, what the fuck? This food looks delectable! God, I'm so hungry. Prep and Goth reminisce, going back to the memory in which they first saw each other again in college after being separated for years. Goth had a crush on Prep since they were kids and wasn't very good at hiding it when they reunited. Although this didn't matter all too much, seeing as Prep is a fucking idiot. They also talk about an experience in freshman year in which they went to a party and Prep couldn't get any dates because Goth was sitting next to him with resting jealous bitch face. The two ended up hooking up, which was a romantic experience for Goth, but purely a sexual one for Prep, and, you know, situation stuff commenced until the beginning of the comic. We also see next chapter that Goth is trying to cut back on cigarettes by putting one in his mouth, but not actually lighting it. Nerd gives him a lollipop as Goth said he still wanted something to be in his mouth. Thank fucking God. Oh my god, this new apartment won't reek like the old one probably did. The next few chapters are back to the typical slice of life formula, just some fun, fluffy stuff. Also, Goth does a subathon. God damn it, why are these people such successful streamers? They don't do anything! Because of the subathon, Goth dyes his hair white as one of the goals, eats spicy noodles, and is drawn on all over by his boyfriends. Also, I think he streamed for like 5 days straight, which is very commendable. I get tired after like 6 hours. Goth ends up loving the doodles so much, he gets them tattooed from the parlor Luna recommended. Jock teaches Prep how to be a male wife, but he's so bad at it somehow that he ends up injuring Jock and Nerd in the process. Prep does end up learning how to make incredibly mediocre spaghetti and meatballs, so hey, that's a small oh my god, they're playing Marvel Rivals. Stephanie gives Goth and Prep free tickets to Anime Con on the condition that they have to cosplay Danganronpa character. Oh, come on, that's just inhumane! I'll let this one slide though, because Stephanie looks good. At the convention, Nerd is cosplaying some anime girl from his favorite series, and realizes after getting called a bunch of different pronouns that they're questioning their gender a little bit, doing things like trying on skirts and talking to their boyfriends about it. He comes to ask Goth about his experience with being transgender, and the two have a really nice heart-to-heart about it. Goth even calls Nerd a bunch of different gender terms to fluster them. Nerd eventually comes to the realization that they're genderqueer and don't necessarily fit within a specific binary or role. She decides to start going by any pronouns as well. Good for for them. Later, the boyfriends get in a fight, as Jock has been feeling pretty upset due to a whole bunch of things, and got upset at Goth for instigating playful banter when he was still super vulnerable. After a chat with his sister though, Jock starts to feel better about the whole thing, and the problem is solved like Mr. Fantastic. Before the end of the season, we get some girlfriends content, so I am satisfied and happy and retiring to live in the woods goodbye. Goth tells Prep he loves him, and suddenly everyone else is telling everyone they love each other, but Prep is overwhelmed by how casually they're able to all say it to each other. He's worried because he doesn't want to get his hopes up, and is worried that they might not actually love him, even despite everything they've all been through together. They all have a talk though, and Prep tells them all he loves them too. Aw, so sweet. The season ends with the boys setting up a new pull-out couch for them all to cuddle on, and waking up to share some lovely domestic moments together. We're left with a message from Ray. Thank you to my lovely readers for sticking around for 200 episodes. I had a lot of fun working on this comic. It has been a good outlet for me to share my thoughts, feelings, and desires. Thank you for letting me be vulnerable with all of these things. Unfortunately, being vulnerable also opens me up to a lot of pain and hardships. I have been rethinking a lot on whether putting myself out there is worth all of that pain. I can't say for certain yet that there will be a season 3 of Boyfriends. That doesn't mean I'm giving up on the series yet for now. While I won't be posting any new episodes, I will still be working on other Boyfriends related projects. You can follow my social media to get updated on any new projects I'm working on. And so, that was Boyfriends. One of the most hated webtoons in recent time. Obviously, my quick recap isn't really a replacement for reading the actual thing, but whatever. I tried my hardest to leave things relatively unbiased throughout my summary, as I'm sure this comic has already gotten plenty of spite-filled summaries on this platform. It's important to take a look into why people actually hate this thing so much, and I really don't think I can properly portray the absolute lowest point of this series with only my words, so,
Not to vent or anything, but I've never had a boyfriend before, so I don't know what to do. I've been craving and burning to be held by a man!
Good God, as horrible as these are, what with the Tumblr kid line delivery paired with the already horrid enough dialogue, I am genuinely so glad they exist because they are hilarious. However, the most hated character in these shorts, Prep, has been made fun of by the person who plays them, so it's pretty safe to say the cast was overselling the cringe aspect of the series, and it definitely worked. A lot of people don't realize that in this day and age where rage bait can accumulate monetary gain, this kind of marketing will work in favor of the creators. It also didn't help that they chose probably the most cringe of the initial scenes to dub over, as other parts of the comic are a lot more bearable than these scenes. All of these animations, while being titled fan animations, are official and produced for webtoon marketing, and are primarily what the comic's detractors point towards when making fun of the series, as they are easily the lowest point and a worse representation of the actual comic itself. Aside from just having cringe dialogue, a huge reason why a lot of people dog on this comic is because of how bad the representation supposedly is, and while I can definitely see this concern, the comic is written, drawn, and created by a queer trans man. Not to mention, the contents of the comic are very obviously fluffy, brainless, tooth-rotting, sweet, gushy goodness that isn't supposed to be realistic. It doesn't need to be, because it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to just make people feel good and happy, and while the characters do have more serious moments, the comic is not trying to be more than a slice-of-life webtoon about 4 men dating, and it's supposed to be cute and sweet and nonsensical. I also want to take a moment to talk about the portrayal of goth sexuality, as he is shown and stated to be asexual. Something I actually do appreciate about this is that Goth still does partake in sexual activities. In most cases of asexual characters represented throughout media, they're typically always depicted as sex repulsed or oblivious to sexual advances. However, Goth is not only shown to participate in sexual activities, but often takes a more instigating, dominant approach to them. And the reason for this is directly confirmed through Ray, speaking about his experience with being asexual and how he thinks it may be tied to the fact that he's transgender. Ray shared their experience in a short comic posted onto Twitter that depicts Goth explaining how he doesn't necessarily feel sexual attraction, and he doesn't like the idea of being touched because of his dysphoria. However, when he feels in control, it doesn't give him gratification in that way, rather a sense of power and control over his own life, his own identity. And this is something that I can relate to immensely myself. In situations where Goth does act sexual towards his partners, it's clear that it's for their gratification, and is out of a genuine love and care towards towards them. Do the characters have weird, cringe sexual dialogue at times? Yes, absolutely. Does that mean that it's literal fetishization? I don't think so, because remember, the author is queer. Goth is, if you haven't caught on by now, his self-insert character, making these interactions and characterizations directly a good representation by the definition. It is literal representation of a real person's experience, albeit with all the fluffy, hopeful, unrealistic scenarios jammed in, which I really don't have a problem with because it isn't harmful or abusive. You wouldn't yell at a straight woman for fetishizing heterosexual people because they're reading one of the thousands of horribly written romance novels crammed into the hashtag book talk section of Barnes & Noble. Sorry to bring the actual Wicked Witch of the West into this, but dude, Colleen Hoover? Best-selling romance author, with such elegant writing techniques such as blatantly romanticizing abuse, incest, rape, and whatever the hell this quote is. This is fine to a lot of people. This is what we're gonna give our monetary support to? Really? Sorry, I got mad, but you understand the point I'm trying to make here, right? This is simply what the author is attracted to, and yes, it's cringe to a lot of people, but there's nothing problematic about it in the slightest. It's all consensual, legal, and it might not be for me and for you, but that's okay. I know that if this stuff was with one of my favorite ships, I would probably be obsessed with it. Holy shit. Another complaint I hear often is that the comic fetishizes Asian people, as all of the characters are different Asian nationalities. I can't really comment on this much as I am not Asian. However, as I've mentioned, Ray is Asian himself. He is based in Indonesia. I've seen some people criticizing his art style for not making it obvious enough that these characters are of these ethnicities. And while that is a valid concern, I really just think it's a result of his art style being very simple, with most of the characters having similar body types and faces. That doesn't make the art style bad by any means. In fact, I actually really enjoyed the art in this comic, but it's understandable that most of these characters don't really have detailed, defining features. So with all of that in mind, with the cheesy dialogue, the accusations of fetishization, and the claims of bad representation, is the Boyfriends Webtoon really that bad? Does it deserve to be deemed problematic and dogged on even years after the initial drama? Honestly, no. I really truthfully don't think so. Cringe culture is dead until it's something that isn't a colorful edgelord sparkle dog fursona. Cringe culture is dead until it's something that you personally don't like. Cringe culture is dead until it's funny to you. There is an immense double standard here, and it's a large reason why I don't associate with fandom culture anymore. Because, tell me, what makes harassing people for shipping themselves with the same character as you okay, but cringe fluffy boys love isn't? The comic itself is not that bad. In fact, I actually found myself enjoying parts of it. Whoa, oh my gosh, scary. I like the girlfriends, I like the low stakes of it all, and I like how healthy the relationships are. There are plenty of things I don't like about it as well, but there's things I can get behind because they're not really that offensive. I think the moral of the story here should be that people are allowed to dislike things without them necessarily being problematic or horrible. Sometimes we can just not like things. There will always be problematic media, but not everything that's controversial has to be problematic per se. People can just not like things. One of my least favorite series in the entire universe is fucking Murder Drones, but I don't think it's because it's disgusting or problematic by any means. I just don't like it, and that's fine. It's okay to not like things. They don't need to be the scum of the earth. They can just not be that good. And I hear you saying, oh, but Quinn, even if the comic itself isn't problematic, the creator is. He's a pro shipper and made weird stuff on the internet and Right, let me get into that. Ray does not have a perfectly spotless track record. As most people have done, they used to be very stupid on the internet. As a minor, when they were primarily a BTS account, Ray would create NSFW content of the members of BTS together. And at the time, the youngest member, Jungkook, was only 17 years old. This is absolutely disgusting, and I don't want anyone watching at home to think that I support this behavior for even a second. But it's also incredibly important to take into account the climate of the internet back then. A lot of people and creators get into controversy because of things they did around a decade ago, and while it doesn't make those things okay, the social and political climate of the internet was vastly different back then. Take Joji, for example, an absurdly popular musician whose works have been universally loved and enjoyed by by millions. There are still people who have no idea that this guy was Filthy Frank before transitioning into a career of music. An internet personality that threw slurs like curveballs and said outrageously un-PC things that would probably give any advertiser a heart attack. However, it wasn't just him. Most popular people at the time were incredibly similar. iDubbbz, Leafy is Here, Pyrocynical, even PewDiePie were all these edgy, unwoke menaces.
What a fucking—
Because it was just normal and encouraged at the time. Doesn't mean that it's right, of course. Of course not. But when you're surrounded by an echo chamber of the same people all of your life, you're going to adopt certain ideologies and beliefs. And the same can be said for the communities that Ray were in at the time. I've spoken about real people fiction extensively before on my channel. And yes, I don't understand it. You likely don't understand it. A lot of people don't understand it. But in a lot of spaces, especially a decade ago, this type of behavior was accepted and embraced. I know I definitely thought a lot of weird things were just normal because of the people that I surrounded myself with when I was super young. Ray has apologized since, although some people doubt the sincerity of his apologies, as he seemed to have been liking BTS shipping content as recent as 2021 or 2023. Wait, 2022, not 2021 or 2022. Correct me on the screen. Make me look smart in this, editor. Which is still, mind you, 3 to 4 years ago by now. I don't think these actions need to necessarily be forgiven or forgotten, but I also don't think they should be used to push the narrative that Ray is a horrible person, an irredeemable monster. Another accusation I see thrown around a lot is the idea that Ray is some kind of pro-shipper, because at one point he made a joke about Nerd being pro-ship, and seeing as for some reason people thought Nerd was his self-insert, took this as a confession of him being a pro-shipper as well. There are a few instances of Ray interacting with fiction versus reality debates, in which he doesn't seem to be in favor of the pro-ship ideology. However, this topic is such a controversial one, and one that I can't find any concrete evidence of to support or debunk the idea that Ray is a pro-shipper or supports them, so don't take my word for anything that I'm saying. Another complaint I hear a lot is Ray being anti-black for saying the N slur when he was 14. Once again, the climate was very, very different at the time, and even if it wasn't, we need to remember that Ray was a 14-year-old living in a non-English speaking community. A lot of people who don't grow up with other languages completely, while having a good understanding of the language itself, don't often know the exact meaning of certain words and whether or not they should say them. Again, not trying to defend this behavior, just adding some additional context. I am not black, so this is not my apology to accept. All in all, the drama has made Ray distance himself from the internet a lot more, and while he's still active, he remains a lot more professional and detached from the controversy, because a lot of it was genuinely traumatizing for him. A post on his Patreon details further his mindset and the effects of the harassment on him, reading, "Thank you for reading 200 episodes of Boyfriends. Hi everyone, as you probably know, we've finally reached 200 episodes of Boyfriends today, but in case you don't, episode 200 is now out on Webtoon. Thank you so much for supporting me through this journey. It's so much more than I've ever asked for, considering this started as a side project for me to have fun with while working on my main job at the time. I honestly don't know what the future holds for this series. The story itself isn't actually finished, but the pain that this series has caused me has made me consider. It's a tough thing to be vulnerable and share your work online. I attach too much of myself to the series, the comic being an exploration of my own sexuality, gender, relationships, and desires, that it just became so hard for me to let things go. When they say it's bad representation, it makes me wonder whether I've been embarrassing my fellow queer people with my existence. When people say I'm only labeling goth as an asexual for the sake of brownie points, it made me doubt my own asexuality, and whether it's an appropriate label for me to use. When they say this comic is the reason queer people in real life face violence and injustices, well, I could only wonder whether making the comic is a mistake after all. But I have been reading some of the comments that people leave on the 200 episode. I have been meeting people at conventions, and what they told me really touched me, about how it's something that they can relate to, something they could look forward to, and how it helped them during the tougher times of their lives. People were very understanding of my plight, and understanding if this would be my last episode after all. It's just a lot of love that I didn't deserve in the first place, and I really want to pay it back. It gives me a certain satisfaction that still makes me cling to the series for even just a bit, and that's why I'm still undecided on whether I would like to continue the story or drop it completely. Thank you so much for being here. The support that I received from everyone allowed me to go on even just a bit longer. I'm sorry that I haven't done enough to give back, and that I've made something that you're probably not proud to be a fan of, and now possibly not continuing the comic. For now, I ask you to give me the luxury of stepping back and reevaluating whether all of the good is worth all of the pain. Just to be clear, the Patreon will still be active, and I'll still be working on other Boyfriends related projects, just not the comic itself. They're most likely going to be unofficial content where I have more control over it. Anyway, thank you so much for reading. I've just had a lot of thoughts about it today. Sorry for burdening you with all my rambles. I hope you guys have a good day. Ray is an incredibly kind person, and I recently had the pleasure of meeting him at Emerald City Comic Con, and even bought some stuff from his booth and offered a few words of encouragement. He is not a saint, and he is not a perfect person. If anything, he is deeply flawed, but the fact that this guy gets so much hate and actual criminals and weirdos are allowed to have platforms still is absurd. Let us not forget how many damn opportunities Black Griffin has been offered in the past few years alone. Criticism of your work and actions will always be warranted, but Ray has been harassed, interacted with very uncomfortably at conventions, blamed for his own suffering, all while being held under an insanely predatory Webtoon contract. Ray has spoken out before about his experiences with Webtoon as a company, and how they've been a source of emotional instability and strife for him for years. They've refused translations for his work, refused to promote his own work if it was even slightly out of what they wanted, stopped acknowledging his existence as a creator at all, own a percentage of his intellectual property, and probably worst of all, likely purposefully promoted Boyfriends as an intentionally horribly cringe series with god-awful promotion videos that Ray had nothing to do with, and then left him to fend for himself when people started dogging on the horrible ads that they created and pushed out. Because all press is good press to them. Hate reading and making fun of the comic will end up paying more, even if it means the actual creator of the comic is going through mental anguish. Contracts like those of Webtoon purposefully prey on creators and drag their name out of the picture and their work through the mud. No one deserves to have their character's identity and livelihood managed entirely by a soulless corporation. And Ray's contract isn't even as bad as other people's experiences with the company. While not to the degree that Ray has received hate online, I understand the mob mentality mindset being against you. I understand people hating my work and taking things I said as a 14-year-old to twist the narrative that I am a horrible person. A narrative that people I knew back then don't even agree with. I understand how it feels to have your work labeled as a scam, to be consistently made fun of by even your closest friends. No one deserves that. Ray deserves to be affirmed for their work. They deserve to be treated like a person, not just by Webtoon, but by people, by you, the viewer. If there's one thing I want from this video, I want for it to spread positivity and support. Not just for Ray and Boyfriends, but for creations and creators everywhere. Delete Twitter, reach out to your loved ones, start realizing what you want to do in life. If you can't realize what's wrong with your own behavior when you're blindly harassing an inoffensive work of fiction, then maybe you deserve to be as miserable as you are. As always, I am open to different opinions. I love discussions that are productive, and I know a lot of my closest peers have conflicting opinions with mine a lot of the time. That's fine. At the end of the day, what matters is that we're all kind to each other and kind to ourselves. If you can do that, just spread a sliver of positivity each day you're alive, then that would be enough.
Ugh. God damn, finally finished editing that video. I feel like it's missing one thing though. Oh, I know.